Good evening. Welcome to a special edition of Last Ball Boxing, joined by who can only be described as a boxing legend, Roberto Diaz. Good afternoon or good evening, depending where you are.
Good afternoon, pal. It's a pleasure. Thanks for having me. And to all the listeners out there, I send all my very best.
You really do good numbers on the channel, Roberto, when you do an episode with us, because you tell it how it is and you're very honest. So again, thank you for sparing some time. It's much appreciated.
Thanks, pal. Appreciate it.
Let's jump straight into it. So first of all, I'd like to talk about the Riyadh card that happened in LA on the 3rd of August. I believe you was there as well, you know, in one of your many fantastic suits. Is that you was there, right?
No, I actually I didn't make it. Although this is home, I spend a lot of time in Miami, and that particular card I was in Miami, so I was not able to make it. However, I did catch it. I watched it. I gotta say, I'm a big fan of a lot of the fighters around there, and I was, obviously intrigued on being at the stadium, and all the personalities were there to show up and celebrities. So no, I definitely tuned in and watched the card.
It must be somebody else with a colourful suit on them, Roberto, that I got mixed up with, right?
Absolutely, absolutely.
So let's start with Turkey Al Sheikh. Obviously, you're in the business side of boxing. What are your thoughts on him transforming the sport? Because he really is transforming the sport, be it the $20 pay-per-view price that he's bringing in. Just how much influence has this guy got in global boxing now, Roberto?
Well, I mean, for me, obviously, someone that's so passionate for boxing and seen through the years, um, you know, people come and go and people stay. I welcome anybody that comes into boxing at all times, and I welcome people that want to make a change, and I welcome people that actually will help make more fans and bring more eyes to boxing. I said it months ago when I was first asked, and there was a lot of people against taking boxing to the Middle East and to Saudi Arabia and to Dubai. I said no. Why? Why are we on this side of the globe so against boxing? Boxing's a worldwide sport, and boxing, as it came many years ago to a desert called Las Vegas today. Yep. What's the difference? We have an amazing. I mean, I have not been fortunate to travel out there, but I see. On the telecast, I see the pictures, I see how much it's grown, whether it's in Dubai, whether it's Saudi Arabia, whether it's Abu Dhabi. I mean, you see the growth, and you see the tourism growth, and with that comes sports and entertainment and music and concerts, and it's part of growth. And to me, anything that can help the sport grow, and again, provide more eyes, and at the time it looks like the fighter is getting paid very well, is great for boxing. Now, what is very important is that it's sustained, that it's not a fad thing. It's here for a year or two, because then it offsets everything and you got to start over. It sort of you could say spoils the fans because they expect everything of the same. Yes. It spoils the fighters with this immense purses that are later not sustainable. So as long as it's sustained and continues obviously nothing's forever. Everything has a beginning, a middle, and an end. It's good for boxing, because as long as we can all work together and set egos aside, it's good for boxing. I love the idea of best versus the best. Back in the day when I was at Golden Boy, I would always push for Golden Boy against Matchroom under the zone. And it was like, my theory was at the end of the year, like a Super Bowl, like the World Series, like the Premier League has the fight, do similar. So when I saw, fast forward a couple years later, the 5-on-5. I didn't call it 5-on-5. I just said Golden Boy against Matchroom. I mentioned it to Eddie. I mentioned it to the zone. I mentioned it in our office, and they were like, "Yeah, it's a good idea, but It never got done. So when I saw 5-on-5 Queensberry against Matchroom, I sat back and I said, I love the idea because I love the competitiveness. I love that boxing has turned into now not only the fans that follow the fighter, but the promoters actually have fans now and loyal fans that follow them. So I've always loved that. And at the end of the day, it's good for boxing because you're going to win some, you're going to lose some, but you're going to put your best against his best. And guess what? Like in this particular case of Queensberry against Matchroom, if they do it again, I guarantee you now Matchroom's going to throw some of their top cards, some of their top fighters, because they don't want to lose again. And they want to come back and get some wins and then do it again. So at the end of the day, it benefits the fans, it benefits the fighters, it benefits the promoters, but most importantly, it benefits boxing.
One negative that I'd like to ask you about is, are boxers in danger of jumping into fights too early? I'll give you an example. Jared Anderson.
Absolutely. Absolutely. There's a reason why in the past it's been done very differently. If I want to, for instance, promoter A contacts promoter B, offers a fight, promoter B accepts it or doesn't. Sometimes they accept it for the wrong or don't accept it for the wrong reasons or what have you. But promoter B has invested a good amount of money in building and knows maybe where that fighter is and doesn't accept the fight because it's too early. Sometimes you could go too late.
Yep.
But too early, it's a fine line. So you had a great question. When you had Jared Anderson as the only American dream at the moment, heavyweight, and you haven't seen something really come out and say, okay, he's ready for anybody. He's still in that growing stage, and Top Rank's doing a great job. However, a public announcement's made or how they went to him and say, we have so much for you. You get the fighter's attention or the team's attention, and the last thing you want to hear is maybe you're not ready. Because what if I lose later for less money? I might as well take the bag now. It was definitely a risk that you have to balance. Now, if I have a fighter in his late 30s and not in the heavyweight division, which is a standard age, still young, but in a normal division outside of the heavyweights, I'm not going to pretend to say it's not ready, you need more fights. I'm going to pretend to say and advise him, we got to get some money in that bank and secure your future, yours and your family. But when you're still a baby and still in those steps, we're not ready. Let's, it's a very fine line, and it could cost, and it could be something that later you regret. But in this particular case, I don't think going into the fight even though everybody, hey, it's a 50-50 fight, you have to say it was premature because you saw it just in the speaking prior, I'm not here for the long time. I don't care if I win a world title. This is something, makes him it was like, okay, you haven't said the right things yet. And then this fight's made, and you're fighting a veteran who's a tough guy. A couple of my colleagues from the UK were like, Robert, don't be surprised if he knocks him out. This guy's for real. We know him. And these are top matchmakers out in the UK as well. And I'm like, really? He's that good? Robert, watch. And you saw from the first round, punches were bouncing off him. I mean, Jared was throwing at him and he was just walking through like, I don't care to eat your punches, but I'm going to land mine. And obviously, you saw the result was what I think many expected, except Team Anderson, and you know, does it hurt him? I think he's young enough to come back, but I think it was that hurted him, because some fighters are going to take. Wait a minute, that much money is involved. Well, if you don't accept it, if you don't let me accept it, then I expect you to pay me the same for another fight. But then how can I pay you the same that high for a lower level fight? So you're at that point as a promoter, and I don't know all the details, but I'm thinking at that point, Top Rank's going to say, well, you know what? All right, you want to take it? We don't think you're ready, but okay, we're going to make our money, you make your money, and let's hope for the best. And that's what we got.
Sometimes you must have to have that difficult conversation with them, though, Roberto, surely, if it's not in his interest, because it's a long way back for Jared Anderson now, isn't it? It's a long way back.
It's very different. And the fans might say, well, what's the difference between, let's say, Munguia and Berlanga fighting Canelo? They both got very well paid. They both came out with a defeat. The difference came out to the face, but in a defeat that they can raise their head up high, be proud of, and come back and say, I learned from that defeat so much that I'm going to be better in the next fight. Now, had they both been knocked out, it could be different, but they're also, Munguia had 40 fights. He had been established. He has a big following. Berlanga, to me, last week, really impressed me. I told him after the fight, I gave him so much props. You know, in the heavyweights, anything could happen. One punch can end it. One punch can turn it around. And you're absolutely right. It's a long way back because now it's mental.
Yep.
And that's the hardest opponent to overcome. His team, everybody, he could do everything in the gym proper again. But once that bell rings in that first fight, that's when the questions start coming through. Like, am I ready? Am I good? So it's going to take a little bit of process once you get knocked out to come back. It could be one fight, but it could also be multiple fights. We don't know until that first bell rings.
So just coming on to Canelo, I honestly think Berlanga played it all wrong in the pre-fight presser. If I was fighting Canelo, Roberto, I'd be putting my arm around him and telling him the best thing since sliced bread. There's no way I'd be antagonising him. However, I think Berlanga's stock has rose post-fight. I think more people know him now than knew him before, and that's a good thing. This is a bit of a cheeky question because I know you're friends with Canelo, but I've got to ask it. Is Canelo slowing up a little bit?
Well, one, it's a two-part question. One, I have to give it to Berlanga. He sold the fight priorly, talking, you know, it definitely could backfire because now Canelo, who as an experienced fighter goes in there to win, now Canelo is really motivated, not just to win, but hurt you, beat you, knock you out. Berlanga, by talking prior to the fight, the only thing he did was add a little bit more pressure to himself, because now you're going to talk a good game, you better back it up and fight. Which if he would have come out and run and survived and held and made it a stinky fight, oh my goodness, that's like basically burying himself. The fans, Puerto Rican fans, boxing fans all around in New York, his fans would have basically shied away and said, you know what, you're all talk, no bark, out of here. But he didn't. He fought. He showed a lot of heart. He showed skill. I thought, oh, he's just one of these big bangers that opens up to try to, you know, just land that one punch that he doesn't really have. He believes he has because you're knocked out lower level opponents. I know him personally, having gone against him with Jason Quigley. And I'm thinking, okay, he's good, but you're not at this level. And after the fight, I respect him. I'm a fan of Berlanga. I can't wait to see him again. I think He's going to grow, definitely. Confidence is going to be there. Hey, I did 12 rounds with Canelo, and I went in there and fought. Showed me an amazing chin. Showed me a lot of he adapted after he got dropped. That right hand never went down again. There was moments where if Canelo fainted, he would faint back. I mean, I could see not only did he learn, because we're going to see a different Berlanga in the next fight, I could see him learning during the fight, because he's doing even the punch that Canelo was coming down. Berlanga later started trying to do the same thing, like, whatever you do to me, I'm going to do it back. It was very amusing to see, but also very enlightening to see this young kid, and even talking during the fight, like he didn't show a respect or intimidation, and that is so important, because it's also showing your opponent, I'm here to fight.
Yep.
And after the fight, there was all the respect, and I'm sorry about the trash talk and everything. It was just, whether it's trying to get in Canelo's head, this and that. But again, I became a fan because of what I saw during the fight, not what I saw pre-fight. Going to your question, is he slowing down? That's nature. That has to be part of the growth and the process and the aging of a fighter. He has not only been at a high level for so many years, he's been fighting professionally since 15.
Yep.
So you add the rounds of sparring throughout those years, the rounds of fighting of these opponents, add all that. And that is enough to say you should have been retired a while ago. Now add the extra. He's fighting men that are much physically bigger than him, younger than him. Berlanga did look, there's rumors that he was about 200 pounds, 195 pounds. He did look bigger. When I saw him in the center of the ring, I was like, okay, this guy gained 20 plus pounds. Then add that little cherry on top that nobody else can get through is so much fame. You've already reached the top of the mountain. There's no much more to achieve. You have it all. It's that saying of once you sleep in silk pajamas, it's hard to get, Yet he continues to strive for legacy and train hard and do camps now in the mountain at high altitude, away from his family, away from his comfort zone. That's something that's very unique, and you only see in special fighters. And I think that's only because his legacy means so much, and because he does love boxing. Is it coming to an end? Not if you ask him. He still has in his mind, many years of continuing. But that's when the body lets you know at a certain time. Boxing isn't a sport that was meant to be. I mean, we're not born to say our bodies should be taking punches to the head and our fists should be hitting other flesh. Little by little, it breaks down. The hands, the bones, exactly, and then the punching. It could be a day that he wakes up and says, "You know what? My body's not there anymore. It's not feeling it." I don't see it yet, because the way I saw him Saturday, the movement, the counter. Now it's more of a smarter fighter, an experienced fighter, working not as hard, but smarter. And it happens to all of us in our everyday life. There's times where now am I going to put in 15 days of work and this and that? No, let me work smarter now. Work on 4 hours, but get more done than I used to be doing 8 hours. So you learn with age, with experience, of how to better yourself.
And he's that good a fighter. He may do, I'm not comparing to Mayweather, but there's two clearly different fighters in Mayweather's career. There's Pretty Boy, and then there's Money Mayweather. So I believe Canelo's that good that he may just find little tweaks to how he fights to allow him to continue that career. Because he's still very hungry, isn't he? In terms of, I don't know where the motivation comes from, Roberto, but he still seems very hungry.
That's why I say it's very unique. It's very, there's very through the history, very rare cases that you can say, oh, he reminds me of somebody that did it like that. Because once you get to the top,
Yeah.
you lose a lot of ground, you lose a lot of sight, you lose a lot of motivation, because it's like, been there, done that, here, I've achieved. Now it's in the minds of many is, now it's my time to go and enjoy. And they lose that focus. It's incredible how he's maintained that focus and motivation to continue on.
And he speaks English now as well, which makes him more marketable. I love his English. I love his put downs, but he's clearly took time to learn more English, right?
100%, 100%. You have to give him credit. He always understood it. Even when I was translating for him years back, he understood it, but he didn't want to speak it because he's a perfectionist. And if it wasn't perfect, he didn't want us to do it. Eventually, a lot of his friends, golfing friends and acquaintances, speak English. So little by little, he started, and I could see that where he learned the bad words first because he's very comfortable with those. And then little by little, he became comfortable. And there's a lot of press conferences or interviews that he'll do just in English.
Well, Demetrius Andrade understood what he said that time, didn't he?
100%, 100%.
So last one on Canelo for question. Do you think he goes back up to 175 and fights Bivol at some stage? Obviously, that can't be yet, but he's still got that on his radar, hasn't
he? He's not one of excuses. Obviously, a fighter knows when they're at their best or when they're not. I think he knows that if he would have been at his very best and Bivol beat him, I don't think he would be thinking of the rematch. However, he's mentioned it several times. He's mentioned it that it would have to be at 175, even though Bivol has said, I want to fight him at 68 because I want to take his titles again. He doesn't want the excuse that later, because you made him drop in weight, it weakened him, and that's why you won. I think he wants it. Obviously, we have to wait for the Bivol and Beterbiev fight to see what happens. I don't like it because already at 68, you're giving up so much more advantage. But that's the competitive person he is and how competitive he is that it wouldn't surprise me. I mean, when he went up to fight, he wanted to fight Kovalev, I was like, what? That's when I stopped like, oh, that can never happen. That can never happen. Because remember, his physicality is that of a welterweight.
Yeah.
And he's gone up super to middle, super middle, light heavyweight. I mean, at that point, it's like, you know what? Don't be surprised if one day, and then there was talks that he would fight the cruiserweight champion. Yeah. At that point, I was like, all right.
Wasn't it?
Never doubt it again. And not only talks, a lot of insiders said, oh, he could beat that one. So it was like, you got to stop like second guessing because he always seems to surprise you.
The problem he's got though, and this is the last one, is that he's not in a great super middleweight era, is there? When I compare it against previous eras, obviously Carl Froch, Kessler, Calzaghe, this current era, unfortunately for Canelo, he hasn't really got the dance partners, in my view.
Well, I think even though he's fought everybody in his era, I think that's why so many people don't give him his just due, because if we go back in every era, if we go back to the era of Trinidad and De La Hoya and Vargas and Corte, these guys had who to dance with him and could, round robin and everybody fight each other. Barrera, Marquez, Pacquiao, Morales, they all had each other. Here, there hasn't been, a lot of that outside of like the Triple G. There hasn't been a lot of that. He fought Triple G 3 times. But there hasn't been a lot of stars. But I think that's in boxing in general. It hasn't been like it has years back. Even if you go into that era of Trinidad, Oscar, we could always say, well, how would they have fared with the great king, the four kings?
Yeah, yeah.
You know, that if we compare era to era, yeah, that's why it's so difficult. But, you know, to me personally, Hagler, Hearns, Duran, Leonard would topple over the later generation of Trinidad, Oscar, uh, Vargas, and Corte. But then that group would have compared to today's group, even you know, the heavy, the welterweights of today wouldn't have compared. So every generation's so different.
Yeah.
But I think that's what happens to some greats. Finito Lopez, very little weight class, never fought Carbajal, never fought Chiquita Gonzalez, never, you know, outside of fighting Lorenz Alvarez from Puerto Rico, from Nicaragua a couple times, he didn't really have that dance partner to make him even better. But this is a guy that, a world champion that won many world titles, several weight classes, and retired 51-0 with one draw. But he doesn't get the credit. Now, with Canelo, they asked me, you know, I was talking to Dan Rafael, where do you rate Canelo in the top? And I had him for 3. And I said, yet, because his story's not done. He hasn't retired. Everybody else in that top 10, top 12 that you have is retired. So let's wait till he retires so we can place him. He's definitely up in the top 3 for me. But we don't know if he's number 1 yet because he hasn't retired. We don't know what's going to continue. You know, so I think, you know, obviously it happens all the time with everybody. Once he retires, people are going to really know what they had and start missing that. You know, I think it happens to all the fighters, all the baseball players, all the athletes, or just in general. You don't know what you have until it's gone.
Does he need to fight Benavidez, Roberto? Is he always going to be a question mark if he doesn't fight Benavidez?
I mean, I think for the general boxing fan that wants to see that fight, I can't blame them. I think for the fighter, the fans of Benavidez, they're craving for it because he hasn't had that big name, and you know they want him to see him move up. Personally, I've seen him fight everybody, and there's been times when even when I was working close with him and helping and matching and everything, it was like, hey, don't fight this guy, don't fight that guy. No, that's who I want. That's who I want.
He's scared of nobody, is that? He's scared of nobody. Canelo's scared of nobody.
Believe me, and that's what not at all. Not at all. He's seen every style. And personally, I can say, with all due respect to David, who's done a fine job, undefeated, multiple world champion, tough as nails. I believe him in his he believes he can win. He's going to win. He's not coming for a payday only. That's the easiest style for Canelo. I literally see that's the easiest style. With Berlanga, we knew Berlanga as a knockout artist that comes forward and throws bombs. We didn't know Berlanga was such a good boxer because he boxed. He boxed. He moved. He used his jab. He tried to put distance. Canelo cut it. David, I don't see him surprising us and coming out and boxing and using his jab. David fights coming forward, throws bombs, eats bombs. Exciting, fun to watch, absolutely. But that's the fighters, that's the style that complements Canelo because he'll block and counter you. And that's what, you know, they said with Berlanga prior to the fight, I saw an interview from Eddie, and he said, fighting whoever he fought prior, when you fight Canelo, you take a leap in class. It's the same thing with Benavidez. No matter who he's fought, fighting Canelo is a leap in class. Whereas with Canelo, been there, done that, seen it. Now it's going to be my dance, and you're going to dance to my beat. So, will we see it? I believe so. I believe so. I mean, I know Canelo, he's never ducked anybody, never had a reason to. I think a lot has to do with no matter who I fight, you never give me credit. So now I'm going to fight who I want, when I want, and how I want. So I think it's more of if we appreciate what we have and we appreciate what you've done and we appreciate, you'll be surprised. He's never ducked anybody. And like I said, personally, I know because I've had fights where like, no, not him, not him, not him. And no, that's who I want and that's who I'm going to fight.
I'm a massive Canelo fan. I'm planning on coming over for the next Cinco de Mayo. I'm planning on coming over because I want to enjoy him while he's here. Because I know he's still hungry, Roberto, but he ain't going to be here forever, is it? So I want to see him in the flesh before he's finished. Let's move on to Wembley on Saturday. I'm in London at the minute. Arguably the biggest card in the UK ever. 96,000 at Wembley. Turki Al-Sheikh's going to witness a very different boxing event. You know what Brits are like, Roberto, and we all get together and the noise and the atmosphere. I'm going to go to the main card straight away. Anthony Joshua versus Daniel Dubois. How do you see this fight going?
I see nothing but explosion. I think the atmosphere is going to be electric. I think in the ring, it's going to be fire. I think it's going to be exciting. It's very rare. Like you said, once all those fans, all those Brits get together, it could be nothing but electric, right? But when that electricity crosses over the pond and it's here and you feel, I mean, personally, I'm excited for the fight. I'm not going, I'm going to be watching it here, but I'm excited because you have two big men, two big boys.
Yep.
Two big punchers, but also two suspect chins. You know, two guys that can get wobbled in any minute. So just take out all that. In heavyweight, anything can happen with one punch. But now you have two big punchers and two chins that are like, it's a very dangerous fight for Anthony Joshua. Very dangerous fight. I see Dubois coming in with nothing to lose, everything in the game, knowing he can hurt him, knowing he has to jump on him, and trying to land that punch. I think we'll see a very intelligent, now with the new team and training, a very focused, a very composed Anthony Joshua. But once he gets hit, it's like out the window, let's go. That's when the fire breaks and we get an amazing fight. And I see Anthony stopping him in around 9 rounds.
Just while he's talking predictions, I don't think Daniel Dubois sees round 7.
There you go. So we're close. We're close.
Close. Very intriguing, though, because obviously Anthony Joshua's going for a rebuild. And as a matchmaker, if he was to lose this fight, like you said, where does that leave Anthony Joshua in terms of his career? Because
it depends on how. It depends on how, because now it's different than what we saw with Andy Ruiz and in the past, where Usyk's the number 1 guy in the division right now. I mean, he pulled up the upset against Tyson. So one thing's when you lost to Andy Ruiz, it's like, okay, somewhat of a fluke. He caught me. I got back. I beat him in the rematch. Done and over with. Lost to Usyk. Wait a minute. Let me fight him again. Lost to Usyk. But now look who Usyk is. So it sort of says, okay, but I lost to the number 1 guy in boxing. Not that Dubois is all the way on the bottom, but he's an opponent that you're not supposed to lose to. But again, I repeat, it is a dangerous fight because he has a big punch, nothing to lose. He's coming to win. I think he's motivated, believes he can win. And he's just as big, So I think the difference is going to be in the rebuild, his corner, composure, and being able to, even if he has these moments of, regroup him in the corner, focus, and he's learned enough now of been there, done that he'll be able to adjust and come back and win. However, if he does lose, it is hard now because how do you match him with Tyson? Unless Tyson loses to Fury, I mean Usyk again, then you could still try to do AJ against Fury back in, Wembley. It could still be a big fight, but it won't be bigger than if both of them win, and then that could be the biggest fight that we've seen for the UK and in many years for the world.
Do you think we get the Tyson Fury versus AJ fight, win or lose, Roberto?
I think so. But win or lose on Tyson's side. If AJ loses, it really hurts the fight. If AJ wins and Tyson loses again, guess what? They both lost twice to Usyk. So this is for the semifinal and who's number 2 in the world. And I think it's still a massive fight.
Just coming on to Tyson Fury music quickly, obviously in late December. I'm still a believer that the best Tyson Fury would beat the best Usyk, but I'm not sure how much he's got left, Roberto. What are your thoughts on that fight?
Going into the fight, I had picked Tyson, and I had picked him because of his size. I had picked him because of his awkwardness. I had picked him because he had never been beat. And again, size advantage. The smaller guy, very good, very high IQ. Normally the bigger man, the bigger good fighter is always going to beat the littler good fighter. So my heart was with Usyk, but my mind said, no, I'm picking Tyson. Going into the rematch, and obviously they both had their moments. Tyson was dominating. Tyson had hurt him, but then he got hurt, and that changed the momentum of the fight and favored Usyk towards the end. Can we see a better Tyson? Again, it goes back to what we're talking about with Canelo. Once you've hit the top, you've made so much money, you've made so much fame, it's going to take an extra from Tyson Fury to do better than he did last time. Get up earlier, run more, train harder, put in those extra miles. Is he ready to do that once he's made so much? Only he knows.
Very quiet on social media though, Roberto, right? So
that's a good sign.
Yeah.
That's a good sign. We haven't been hearing anything. Hopefully he is out there away training and it hit a certain spot that no money, no lavishing ribs lifestyle can replace, that it hits something in here that he says, I'm coming for everything. Usyk, on the other hand, hasn't had, even though he's had the accolades of doing many great things, I don't think we've seen, like, we've lost him to fame and a celebrity status or anything. I still think to him, the most important thing is to be one of the greatest ever to step in the ring. And you see that with the Lomachenko, you see that in his circle, that they still strive for, like, not settle for less. So I think we'll see a little bit more on Usyk, where he even prepared better. There's more time adjusting to the weight, getting some more mass on, some more muscle. He'll come in. If Tyson doesn't come in better than he did last time, I think you'll definitely see Usyk better than he did last time and make it look easier.
I honestly think Tyson Fury's got a 6-round window to finish Usyk. If he goes past 6, I think he's in big trouble. So I hope he comes in heavier and big man him, if that makes sense. Leaning on him, getting him tired.
That's your big advantage, your size. You have to use your size. And I think it worked the first time around when he hurt Usyk, but he was a little confident. He was a little, enjoying himself too much. And little by little, Usyk got back into the fight and then turned it around with a big round.
Okay, last topic. Liverpool, October.
Let's go.
So, Ronny Rios is jumping in with Nick Ball. Ronny Rios is a serious opponent, right? And not a lot of the UK fight fans may have heard of him, but I've done a bit of homework on him, and he's a serious talent. So But so is Nick Ball. Nick Ball's proved himself right, in Saudi Arabia, beating Vargas, beating. I didn't have him to beat Ray Ford. I thought Ray Ford would beat him. How good do you think Nick Ball is, Roberto? And obviously, it's a tough night's work, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Nick Ball deserves all the credit, deserves all the accolades. He's undefeated. He's a world champion for a reason. He's fighting at home in front of his fans. Like him or not, he is at home. He has the time zone, everything on his side.
Yeah.
And we respect him tremendously. It's not going to be easy. It's not going to be easy, not at all. I saw him. I felt he got shafted with Vargas, even with his. It's incredible to see probably the shortest world champion in history versus one of the tallest. Now that Espinosa is taller, but prior to Espinosa, there was nobody I remember being taller than Ray Vargas, and yet was able to adapt and beat him. He didn't get the decision, but he did beat him.
He beat him up a little bit, didn't he, Roberto?
Yeah. And then when Ray Ford, you're absolutely right. I didn't think he would beat Ray Ford. The style was not the right, and yet he came away again. So I believe this is a man that works hard, motivated, and has done more than his capability because of his desire. Ronny Rios is I've beginning years. He had retired. It was done, over, fought twice for the world title, came up short. But it's something that came in and clicked. And it's something that almost every fighter has, that last one. When we thought Roberto Duran was done and over with and moves up to fight Iran Barkley in the middleweight division, it was like, oh, this is going to be such a mismatch. He's going to get beat up. We had that last great night from Roberto Duran. Yeah. And through the years, you've seen it. Ronny has been training so hard. He's so motivated. Third time's the charm. And I'll tell you a little bit that I've never, I haven't said yet, but the little similarities of Ronny going to the UK. Many years ago when I met Ronny and I signed at Golden Boy, we signed 3 fighters in the same group with the same manager. And all 3 were young, undefeated, good-looking kids, had good amateur pedigree. I remember Ronny reminded me of a certain fighter of the past. And through the years, I reminded him, hey, you remind me of this fighter. You remind me of this fighter. And now, Frank Warren, who's very familiar with the fighter I'm going to mention, it comes down to so many years later, we're on a Queensberry card in the UK against a Queensberry fighter. And I'm going to remind Frank, because he remembers this fighter. He worked with this fighter for a little bit, and he was out there. And that's Marco Antonio Barrera, the babyface assassin.
Wow.
And ever since I met Ronny, not that they're identical, but he reminded me of this young little kid, because when I first got Ronny and we started working together, he had a baby face. But once that bell rang, he was very vicious with his body attack. And I remember him coming out of the ring, and I told his trainer at the time and Ronny, I said, man, you guys, I love watching you. I love seeing that transformation. And you remind me of somebody very close to me, which is Marco Antonio Barrera, the babyface assassin. So now I'm taking over the babyface 2.0, going over to the UK. He fought Paul Lloyd. He fought a couple guys out there. Richie Wenton, I believe was his name, and he did really well. So we're hoping that Ronny Rios can do similar to like Barrera did and go captivate the fans in Liverpool and bring that title back home to the UK, to the California.
Roberto, from a fighter's perspective, I mean, it's coming over the pond, everything's different. How difficult is it from a mindset to keep him composed and keep him comfortable whilst in the UK?
When you're in,
mentality.
I think when you're a young fighter, it can get to you. I think when you're an older fighter, a seasoned veteran, it's more of I'm fighting for the championship. I'll tell you, with Ronnie, he's somewhat still a young kid, joking here and there. He has a good time. He's very not of a mean spirit or you know.
Yeah.
But one thing about him is I believe he's like a student of the game. And when this opportunity came up, he was very excited, very motivated, and says, I like it. I like going to the champion's hometown because that's how it should be. When I win the title, I should be winning it from the champion and then bringing it home. Today, there's so many challengers that I'll fight him, but I'm not going to his home. Yeah. He has to come to my home, and he has to, it's like, go win the title, and then you defend at home if that's where you want. But win it. And he reminds me a lot, and again, it goes back to the Barrera and everything, but he does remind me a lot of that old mentality of a fighter. And, you know, not only am I, yes, I'm hoping for that last great performance, but I'm also knowing that once a fighter, when you're very young and the talent's there, sometimes I'm not going to run today, or I'm not going to do this today. I'm going to take a day off, and because you take it for granted. Yeah. Once you lost it, you know, being retired for a couple of years, and you really feel that love back and you miss it. And now you're doing it for the better reasons. Now you're not doing it for the money, the glory. That now you're doing it for me, not everybody else, not my manager, not my trainer, not my wife, not my friends, no, now I'm doing it for me. I want this world title for me. That's when maturity comes in, experience comes in, and the will to win. I'm expecting a hell of a fight. Yes, it's going to be hard. It's going to be difficult because Nick is on right now on his best moment. But the difference between the last two fights and this one is Nick was coming forward constantly, but the two opponents, Ray and Ford, were backing up. So it gives you that space. Yeah. Okay. In this particular fight, you're going to have Nick Ball come to the center of the ring. You're going to have Ronny Rios meet him in the center of the ring. And now it's going to be like, who backs up who? And I think that's where the only thing I can guarantee is the fans win, regardless of the outcome of the fight. And Liverpool was great last time out. We loved it. The people were amazing. We had a great time. I'm hoping to repeat that, but this time coming back with the win and coming back with the belt.
How do you prepare Ronnie for the crazy UK fans, Roberto? Because it is a very unique atmosphere, isn't it, as you know?
Luckily, Ronnie fought on a couple Canelo undercards. I remember at least one that I put him under, and he got some crazy Mexican fans, you know, and obviously this time it was in his favor because they were supporting him. I think he fought a Puerto Rican that night. This time it'll be against him 100%. But I think if, you know, and I learned a lot when Jorge went to London. There was a massive support for Kevin Mitchell. But when he went to Manchester, it was 10 times that with Anthony Crolla. And Jorge was able to go through it, get through it. So now it just put on some noise reduction headphones as you walk out to the ring. And as long as you can keep the fans not so loud, that means you're doing everything good in the ring. You're controlling the fight. Once they start getting loud, that means Nick is in control. So make sure you keep that decibel level down because that means you were in control. So Manchester fans are very unique. They're much louder. Not saying that I want to experience how loud the Liverpool fans are, but I hope we can definitely win over some fans and come away with a great experience, a great fight, and a lot more fans for Ronnie. And, of course, the WBA belt.
Okay, I think that's a perfect place to finish it, Roberto. So I'd like to say thank you for your time this afternoon. Much appreciated. Thank you for joining us for boxing. I look forward to sharing a tequila or vodka. We haven't quite made a mind up yet in Liverpool. And good to see you fit and healthy, young man. You're looking good on camera. Much appreciated. Thank you for talking to us about boxing. We'll catch you soon. Thank you very much.
Always a pleasure, Carl. And I'll make sure I take out my Canelo hat out there for you as a gift. And I look forward to seeing you, having that drink, and just catching up, pal. And to all the fans out there in the UK, all the best. Enjoy this coming championship fight between AJ and Dubois. It's going to be amazing. Don't miss it. And I'll see you all soon. Thank you.
Thank you.